Welcome to this episode of the Weekday Edit. My name is Ellie,
I'm Arabella.
and we are Weekend Creative. We are a commercial product photography agency based in San Jose, California. And we have had so much fun on these streams, just sharing our process and talking about photography, specifically product photography, but also just photography in general. And today is going to be really fun. Arabella is going to be going through some post-production basics for you guys and kind of sharing her process in Lightroom and in Photoshop, working on some images that we shot recently. And so I'm
Yes.
really excited to see how these come together. And yeah, Arabella, do you want to take it away and kind of talk a little bit more about what you're going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to be working in Lightroom Classic and Photoshop, editing a personal project. We actually have been aiming to do more of them because, those are what personal projects that just fuel us in the best way possible, and it's the time for us to get really creative. So we are always preaching on doing those. So yeah, it's going to be a fun little editing stream here where I'm going to go over some of what I do in Lightroom Classic and Photoshop, but also some of the new features and tools that have come out since, I don't know, the last few months. We just came back from Adobe Max like not that long ago, and so we're just all like excited for everything that has come out. So yeah, if we want to head on over to Lightroom Classic to my screen,
Yes.
I'll pull up what we've got working on. But I wanted to really just show like how I begin from the start. So I have my little folder here of our fun shoots is what we call them. And yeah, so we took a set of images here. We decided let's do a series of three kind of like still life images. They're all vertical, and doing we're showing kind of like featuring like monochromatic scenes that have like glass and florals and fruit. And so we're just like, let's just have fun and play. So I'm going to go ahead and import these. I just did a quick drag from my folder here. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We are super happy to answer, whether it's editing, whether it's, creative business. Like, we are here to just chat and, have fun together. So
Yes, we have some people joining us already. We have Wade, Josie, Burns, Troy. Thank you for saying hello in the chat. And like Arabella said, feel free to ask as many questions as you want as we go along, or even just like give comments. We love to interact with you guys. So thank you so much for being here.
yeah. Cool. So I'm just going to get started here. So the first thing, I mean, I just love using Lightroom Classic as a way to organize all my images. I know that's not the case for everybody else, but it works for me, especially as I get to kind of like take some edits and apply them across, the whole scene or all of the scenes. But in this case, I'm just going to start off with doing some color correction and lens correction. Those are kind of like the basic first steps that I do. Usually it already knows which lens I have shot it with, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
Great.
awesome.
And then I go over here to the top and I take this little eyedropper tool. It's actually already kind of color corrected it slightly because of me using this gray card. So if you don't have a way to color correct, having a gray card on set is like the best thing because it's just an easy way. Or you can get one of those, I think they're called Spider. The brand is called Spider, and it's just like a little booklet with like all these colors and different grays. And so you can use that to kind of color correct your images very quickly. So I'm pretty good with that to start. So let me just go ahead and copy these settings here. Let's see. Perfect. And then there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy it, and actually let me just take a look at that again. Sometimes I'll have multiple things checked off for various reasons. If I'm working on a specific client project, I'll want the crop to be the same, different things like that. But in this case, I'm just gonna remove the transform and crop for now because I don't, and the healing as well, because I don't want that to transfer over. So I'll just go ahead and copy those. And then I'm gonna take up select all of these images over here in the purple scene, and I just get to paste them, and then it just does it
So
automatically
easy.
for me. So easy. It's
Magic.
great. Magic.
We have a few more people joining. Jack is here, Darby, Emily. Thank you guys so much for being here. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. But we're so excited that you guys are joining us. And
Awesome.
yeah, so fun.
Super fun. So I have all of our images here, but really I'm not really going to use all of them. I just kind of wanted to show you like just the process of like the fact that we're like introducing, moving, you know, kind of deciding what
Making
the best
adjustments.
adjustments exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of getting in there. And
Well, and then we wanted the orchid to be, we wanted to have it in two places, but we only had one orchid. So we took a photo of it in each
exactly.
spot so that we could
Yeah,
composite later. And
exactly.
nobody will know. Everyone will think
Nobody
there
will
was
know.
two. They're gonna know.
I know, right? So there we go. So we've got, this is probably going to be, I feel like this is the last image that we decided on probably.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one and this one right here, which is the orchid down here at the bottom. That's perfect. So I usually will go ahead and grab these two images here and then put them on in Photoshop. So I'll edit in and I'll just open as layers in Photoshop, which is great because it just does it automatically for me. And
Yes.
we love that. So
the more automation, the better sometimes.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's like those little things that just take, like, it doesn't take that much time, but it overall, if you're editing a lot of images, it ends up saving you so much time.
Yes. And actually doing opening as layers too works really great for when you're doing like stop motion where you have a lot of frames that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's a really nice to be able to do that really quickly.
Yes.
So anyway, and then actually, let me just double check that I didn't, I want to double check. Okay, yeah, no, perfect. Cool. Sometimes I'll do, whenever we're shooting, we like to do like really crisp photos from the front to the back. And so sometimes I'll take like multiple photos with the focus in different points so that I can then focus stack in post. But I think we decided we were like, let's keep the focus up at the front here with the kiwis. So anyway, so that's kind of the first start, right? And then I kind of want to show you guys these other images because I actually want you guys to pick which one we're going to be editing today.
Oh, okay. Let us know. You guys get a choice.
You get a choice. So again, same thing here, where I'm just enabling the profile corrections, and I'm going to click that dropper here. It's that little eyedropper tool.
It makes such a difference.
It really does. It's insane. And so I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. And then select all the images in this yellow orangey scene and paste them. And there we go. And it's like insane.
Beautiful. I know.
How crazy it is.
It just warms it up so much.
It's insane. Okay, so I think we were also playing around with which version of this we wanted. But let's see. Do we like it further away? Turned or a little bit more
I kind of like that one.
That one, right? Okay, cool.
Is that the last one?
This is the last one.
I feel like it's usually the last one.
It usually is.
It's like either the last one or like one of the early ones where we made a change, then we were like, never mind, don't like that change. Go back.
Okay, I'll bring it into Photoshop just so that we know that we want to edit it.
Perfect.
And then the last one here is, I think my personal favorite, I think. And so I'll take that eyedropper tool again, and I'm going to go ahead. And usually I just do keyboard shortcuts when I'm working in Lightroom and Photoshop. So I'm just doing a Command C for copy. That's for copying the develop settings. And then select them all. And I can right click, develop setting, paste settings. Perfect. So it cleans that up so nicely. And so let's just take a look at probably the very last one, since that seems to be the one.
It's the trend we're going with.
It's the trend we're going with. Okay, cool. So that very last one looks great.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that into Photoshop.
I just love the blue and yellow.
The blue and yellow, I know. And you know what? I remember we were thinking about whether this glass would fit in or not because it's the green. But I'm realizing that the green actually goes well with the plants too.
That's true. Like, okay, I mean, we could make it a little more yellow.
More on the yellow side. That's
just like push it a little bit, but either way.
So if you guys are watching, please let me know. Would you like to edit the purple one today? Would you like to edit the yellow or the blue? I will give you guys a choice. So let me know in the chat. Let us know.
Let us know.
In the meantime, I want to show you guys something really cool too that I've been playing around with. It's a new feature in Lightroom. I'm obsessed with the point color feature tool that Lightroom Classic has added. So basically it's like another one of these little eyedropper tools, which is like for color correcting, but instead it's for literally like picking a color, and you can just directly influence where you want it to go as far as the color. And it even gives you as much as like range, like how much do you want to include, or if you want it to like be a tight color. So yeah, it's really impressive, you guys. It's insane. And obviously, like in this scene, it's affecting everything that of the color that I picked, which was that yellow. So you can tell that even the little curly guy is getting affected. So it's insane, you guys. This is
such a great feature.
It's such a great feature.
Yeah, it gives you so much control, which is great. Exactly. More control, the better.
Exactly.
Okay, we have 2 votes for yellow and 2 votes for blue.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, okay, I if I'm gonna be a tiebreaker, I would say blue.
Okay.
But maybe we'll have time to like get to the yellow a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Okay. So then why don't we try it, right? There's I kind of want to see if I will. So I'm looking at this glass right here, and even though I already brought this over into Photoshop, let's go ahead and close these out because I want to show you guys something. So basically, right, I'm looking at this green color and I'm like, okay, like I kind of want to change it and see if I can make it a little bit more yellow. Let's just say that was like something that I wanted to do. So I can click on, some of the green in the glass and just start moving it over. And you can see that it starts to like, change, like really, it's like so cool. But sometimes, like, let's say, here, let me just remove this. So let's say, how about I wanted to just affect this blue, right?
Yeah.
So if I do the regular point color, I can do this, but then my whole scene starts to get affected, right? And then I'm like, okay, I don't want that. So a trick that I have found is to go into my masks, and you guys, the masking has been like, I feel like it keeps getting improved in Lightroom Classic and like so much, because I can literally just do a selection on an object selection tool and have that detect, okay, that's what I want, right? And sometimes it's not perfect because obviously we're working with a monochromatic scene.
Yes,
but I can just define it, right? And I do this by adding the little plus sign, right? Here, I'll do it again. There you go. Perfect. I'll do a plus sign and then I select brush, and then now I can just include that. There we go.
Maggie says I need a lesson on masking.
And I'm doing it really quickly right now. But Lightroom's actually done like a really good job of like improving their masks, and it's been awesome. And then of course you can minus, you can remove from the masks, but I just love it. And you can just really refine here, right? So now that I have my glass selected, now I have the ability to do point color just for that mask alone, which is great. Nice. So then I can click here, click that, and then know that only the glass is going to be affected, which is awesome. So that's been a really key thing for me as I've been editing in Lightroom Classic. If I want to perfect any further colors,
Maggie says it's hard to see what you're selecting. Maggie, do you mean just in general, or do you want Arabella to do that mask again?
Yes.
Let us know. Or if you have specific questions about masking, feel free to ask them for sure. We're happy to cover. URL for a masking lesson. There are so many. If you go back through the Adobe Live archives, I feel like almost every Photoshop Adobe Live session covers some masking in some way or another. So I definitely would check those out. And I don't know if you have any other specific resources, Arabella, that you'd want to share about masking.
I mean, there's so many. There's so many out there. I think if you just look up, masking, and then even like, I'm sure like, Adobe has some tutorials too within like actual
within
Photoshop
the tools
or in Lightroom. So I think I think the amount of information that we have at our disposal these days is insane. But I feel like Lightroom Classic and Photoshop has really done a great job of like trying to be more intuitive with what we're going to ask it, like, as far as masking, right? So even right
Yeah.
within Lightroom Classic here, you can see that, okay, do you want a subject? Do you want a sky, or do you want a background, right? So some of these things are pretty common things for people to want to mask out. And then they
Right.
even go so far as doing objects or brush or, linear gradient, radial gradient, or range. Like even this is like a color range, right? So I can even
Yeah.
click here and be like, okay, now that selected all of everything that's in that's yellow in my scene, right? So it's pretty awesome. I feel like you definitely just like play around with all these different mask options. But my favorite has just been like to do a quick object, object, like object selection mask, and then just kind of like mask out the thing that I want to
Yes.
get selected. And usually like, I'm sure it uses some form of AI to kind of figure out, okay, here's,
Yeah.
and
To
like
kind of get the
contrast and
shape.
like, yeah. And see,
Yes.
there you go,
And it
right
did a
there.
great
It did
job.
a great job.
Yes.
Yeah. So then there you go.
Wade put a link in the chat to a search on the Adobe Live YouTube page. So if you're wanting to learn
Perfect.
more about masking, please go check that out, Wade. That was awesome. Thank you. And
Yeah.
Samuel says, wait, yeah, Lightroom has really upped their masking game.
Look
I
at
love it. I mean,
isn't
that's
this
really
insane?
impressive. Go
And then
Lightroom.
I know, right? And so this was one of the things that I saw at Adobe Max, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
it doesn't stop there, right? You can continue to add points,
Mhm.
right, to kind of like really get everything
Control it even
to
further.
control it even
Yeah.
further.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty cool. So there's a lot of new things that you can kind of play around with here. So anyway, I'm gonna leave that there because I do kind of like the green actually. So let's go ahead and edit this in Photoshop. So
Let's go.
and something else that I like to do actually in Lightroom Classic before I forget is sometimes I'll go into the transform section and see what happens when I do an auto transform, or even like a level, which actually that's kind of nice. Sometimes it does like little adjustments that I like. So it depends. You can kind of play around with it and see what you like. Otherwise, you can
Yeah.
also do a guided, right? That's where you kind of like place some points and kind of like, okay, you're directing it and telling it, hey, I want it to be this
How
way.
you want it to be adjusted. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Especially that works really great for when you have like when you're kind of like on a normal level playing field, not at an angle.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
But I like this for now, so I'm gonna stick with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maggie had asked if it's possible to turn a person's white t-shirt to black or another color using like masks in Photoshop.
I believe you can, although it takes a bit of like, you have to do, I think you actually use a lot more blending modes when you're doing and color fill layers too, and you kind of have to like mess around with the blending modes. I can't tell you exactly right now off the top of my head how to do it, but I know that as long as you do a good job of masking and you can kind of mess with like blending modes and solid fill layers,
because you want it to look realistic, like with all the wrinkles and the shape and everything, instead of just like painting it in. So yeah,
exactly.
But I bet some of those tutorials that Wade shared will cover that.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So then let's go ahead and edit this in Photoshop. And honestly, this is kind of like a very perfect photo, which I'm like, maybe there isn't as much editing, but I just want to show you guys like the power of all these different tools. So my favorite lately has been the remove tool, which it does. It's not as fast as, my trusty spot healing brush tool, but when I tell you that it's very accurate, it's usually pretty accurate.
Yes.
So, I will use a combination of different tools these days, especially with Generative Fill out now. So it's been like actually like amazing. At first there was, like, especially in commercial work, right? Like we're creating work for clients. So, to not have like the generations be commercially viable, like was not, we were not going to do that. Especially
it wasn't useful.
Work isn't useful yet. But it's gotten so much better. And now that it's commercially, viable, then it's like, great, we can, actually use it this time. So
yeah,
here I am using the remove tool and like, wow, look at how accurate that is. Right. So, and I can just like go in versus like, here, let me just give you an example. That's so good. Okay. Here's like what like spot healing brush tool would have done, right? So if I go here, and sometimes it will do a good job. But like sometimes it'll do this. It'll do these weird things where like it'll
Yeah.
duplicate or it just doesn't know exactly what to do. Here, I'll give you another example. If I wanted it to be like clean this, you know, sometimes it'll do that. And that's
Yeah.
not
It's pulling the
really,
yellow down and you want it to be white.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So then that's
Yes.
where, the remove tool really does like do a good job and cleans it up. And it's just a little bit more accurate, which
Yeah,
I love.
absolutely. Yes.
Takes a little bit longer, but it works.
But it's worth
Look
the
at it, so
time.
much better.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh,
So little things like that.
Andrew Hockrattle is here. Hello. Thank you for
Oh,
joining us. Maggie asked, is it always necessary to move to Photoshop after Lightroom Classic? Or maybe like, can you share why you start in one and then move to the other and when someone might
yes.
make that choice?
Yeah. So I feel like Lightroom Classic really is like when you're not doing like anything heavy as far
Mm-hmm.
as manipulating or removing things
Compositing.
or compositing. So if you're just most like I don't know, some portraits or some lifestyle stuff, like I kind of just stay in Lightroom sometimes because I don't really need to like do a whole lot in Photoshop, right? Whereas like because we're removing, for example, like this, right? If I couldn't fix this really in Lightroom.
Yeah.
Like yes, there are the healing tools here, but they're not as accurate or as like I don't know, as advanced, I would say, as like Photoshop. Photoshop really is for manipulating and editing, where I feel like Lightroom is enhancing. It's a lot of
Yes.
enhancing, right? Enhancing is
Yeah.
Lightroom Classic or Lightroom. Photoshop is very much like, okay, let's get in here and like change things up, even
Yeah.
and like make something that really wasn't there before, right?
Yes. Yeah, for
So let me
sure.
go ahead and show you guys. This has been like my something that I've been really loving. Generative Fill has like revolutionized my editing work. I feel like low-key I've gotten a little bit more lazy, but in the best way, right? Because I don't want to be sitting here getting a neck hump for the rest of my life or like,
Yes. Well, it saves you time on the things that are just like it's not the creative stuff, right? It's the
yes.
stuff. I mean, you can definitely use it for
And you
creative
can be
things.
creative, right?
You can
Like,
be
but
creative
are you
with
kidding
it.
me?
But like something like this, it's like that could take you so long to
So
do
long.
when you can just do this in like 30 seconds, right? And then you can get back
Literally.
to creating and doing the more fun stuff.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
just like insane what we can do
Oh
with
yeah.
generative fill. And so like I've just been like really playing around lately with just this tool and seeing like pushing it and seeing like, okay, like what can it do for me? How can we like, take advantage of this tool, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
tool and make my life a little bit better. Like, why not?
Yes,
Like, can you see
absolutely.
this? Are you guys like seeing what I'm seeing? Because I am blown away. And so like there's things like that, right? And then I can even, I don't know, maybe this little weird like thing is annoying me. So I'm just gonna select it here and generative fill a new edge. So it's like these tools are so powerful and I'm just obsessed because it's going to make my life easier and I
Yes.
get to the result that I would, rather have, right? And sometimes it's not perfect. Like what is that? But
Yeah. But I mean,
it's like
sometimes you don't want it to be exactly perfect either. It's an organic shape. So
yeah,
it
it's
kind of,
organic.
it knows that and it's kind of like
Mhm.
playing to that too. So
Yes, exactly. So that's
yeah.
just, a couple examples that I have been like loving about, generative fill and these remove tools. So again, I can even do generative fill on this plate. Let's say, I mean, maybe I want to keep that because that's part of the texture. But if I
Yeah.
like, was like, I want it to be such a clean plate, like this is not what I want, and I can just use generative fill to kind of be like, hey, remove these things.
Get out of here.
And there you go. Like, how insane is that? That's crazy. So one thing I will say though, and this is the one thing that I have been like, this is my struggle and my thing with, generative fill right now is that the quality is not perfectly there for like really large things. So this
Yeah.
works great for really small, like smaller things, right? But even
Yeah.
then you can tell this little thing is like just slightly blurry, right? It's slightly like a little bit more soft. because of the quality output, right? So that's something that hopefully we in the future will get a much higher output of quality. So something to combat that is to kind of add a little bit of noise, or maybe, you know, you want to add a little bit of sharpening just so that like to that specific area. So in that way you can do like, let's see, maybe I'll add some noise, and I don't know. You can tell like when it starts to get really crazy. So definitely pull it back. Probably don't even need that much, but even just like a little bit, maybe like 1.50. There we go. And then maybe we want to sharpen it a little bit. In this case, I would just use, you know, a regular tool here, but that already looks a little bit better.
Yeah, you know? It really does.
Yeah. So then there we go. It's kind of like we went from that to that. So like those are some like little tools that you can, you know, use or do like when you're retouching and you're using Generative Fill to clean up something. So anyway, I'll go ahead and keep it moving here.
Yes,
so
let's go.
Yeah, I mean, this really is such a perfect image. I love it. But let's say we wanted to, you know, I don't know, even let's try what Generative Fill does to like clean up this edge, right? I don't want this like big bulky.
I was gonna say you could even try adding more things to this image. Like we could add more lemons or
ooh, smart. Yes, let's
thistles, or you know, I don't know, to see what it can do if we wanted to add more to the scene.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's definitely do that. And then, you know, obviously like if it turns out to be like really ugly or like not great, then we just go back to how we normally do it, right? Which is we kind of like take our selection tool and soften the, you know, selection, and then just kind of, you know, okay, so see how like funky it can get?
Yes.
So
do you think it needs to be a smaller selection to start?
You know,
or it's just not gonna do it?
I don't think it will. Like, I think because there's so much going on, there's like a lot of texture, different texture at the top, at the bottom. It kind of maybe doesn't know that we want it to be like a clean thing, you know? I think if there was less of texture and less of like different colors, it might do it.
Well, and this is why it is so important to still learn how to do everything, because sometimes the new tools will work and sometimes they won't. And you still have to have the knowledge of like, how can I fix this on my own? You know, even as our tools get better and better, it's still important to have the skills.
Exactly. So I'm going to help myself here first and just use the remove tool to kind of remove these like different little textures here. There we go. Maybe I'll remove this as well. See what happens there. And perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my polygonal lasso tool. And this is how I usually like to clean up my kind of these like little line things, right? And I just love this contextual taskbar here because it gets me to my like the next tool that I need to use, which is great. So I usually actually in this case I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to smooth out my selection, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to feather it, because you can tell that behind here is a lot more softer. So I want to make sure that I stay soft there. And then I do what I usually do, which is, you know, do a little bit of stamping, which is what, you know, it just feels like the old archaic way now.
But it is important.
It is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you got to still know your stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, but like, it's, you know, it's nice to be able to know that there's some tools that will make it easier and faster.
Yes.
You know,
for sure.
Okay. Let's see if that came out how we wanted it. Okay. I'll go ahead and remove that. And then there we go. Perfect.
That looks great. Yeah.
And I might even just go in with some like the stamp tool a little bit, just to kind of make it a little different.
Yeah.
Oops. Did not mean to do that. Okay, so here's the one thing I don't like about the contextual taskbar, because it's like, right, it hovers.
It's a little too close sometimes.
It's a little too close sometimes, and so then I'll accidentally press this layer mask thing. Yeah, and I'm like, that is not what I wanted.
That's happened to me in Illustrator, where it's just like right there, and then you're like, okay, like I love you, but like go scoot over a little bit. I want a little space.
Exactly. Because like what I usually do is I just, you know, I usually click you know, just somewhere random to kind of like get out
Right.
of the selection, right?
Then it's just there. Yeah.
And then it's just there. It's like a little creepy thing just kind of hovering. So when we took these photos, we were in this like really cool space in Berkeley, and they had like the most insane collection of like backdrops and
Beautiful.
textures, like so beautiful.
Mhm.
You guys, we went wild, like just, you know, with all these things. Um, okay, cool. So let's see. What else do I want to do? Oh, you know what else? I do want to kind of fix the orientation of these glasses a little
Yes.
bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, and also let's continue to clean this line as
Yes.
well.
Which I
So
do want to shout out
yeah.
Natalia, who owns this studio. So she recently launched vinyl surfaces based off of the like hard surfaces that she has at her studio. So if you
Yes.
are a product photographer and you're looking for beautiful vinyl surfaces that photograph so well and they're super durable, easy to clean, they're awesome. Cosita, is it Cosita Vinyl? Is her
Yeah, it's like her Instagram now is Cosita Creative.
okay. So if you
But
go,
yeah,
yeah,
Cosita Vinyl is the brand of like the
yes.
vinyl backdrops.
So if you're looking for some great backdrops, highly recommend.
Amazing. Okay, wow. I just love this remove tool. It's so good. Sometimes I will say though that like, for example, right here, you can tell that the remove tool tried to get the texture, but sometimes it's not perfect.
Yes.
You know, what tool is sometimes. So I like to just go in with the kind of the patch tool. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. The patch tool to sort of just clean up that texture there because it just looks a little wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. That's the one thing that I'm hoping that they'll also improve, because I think even though it does look accurate when it's further away, I don't want the quality, the texture
Yes.
to really see through. Sometimes I think it works better when there's like a really smooth thing, you know, or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Well, and you want to have
Yeah,
flexibility with these images. You don't want to be limited on what you can do with them, especially if it's for
right.
a client. So paying attention to those details is really important. Zooming in, making sure all those little
Exactly.
things are cleaned up.
Yeah. So there you go. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and take care of this as well. So we have, let me go ahead and do our little remove tool here for this big old thing here. Looks kind of weird. I'm always like curious to see how well remove does like when it's next to an edge as well.
Yes.
So yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I will say though that, you know, the texture again like comes through, you know, so it's like a weird little thing. So I kind of just try to clean it up a little bit there. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So now let's go ahead and fix this little line here. And actually, let me also fix these little dots right here just because gotta clean that up before I start stamping away.
Yes.
That way I don't have to stamp nearly as much either. I can
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
go up a
Save
little bit.
yourself some time.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, great. So I'll just grab my selection tool again, kind of bring that there. And I'm kind of eyeballing it a little bit here, but I can always refine my selection here.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, perfect. And then same thing, just smoothing out my selection, and then I'm feathering it as well. Again, perfect. So using my trusty stamp tool. And actually, just kidding. I meant to do a little bit less here. There we go. Oops. And then let me go ahead and fix that once again, because it definitely. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's actually one thing that you guys need to remember. If you're gonna like do something different to your selection, make sure that you like also take into account that like the selection that you either just added or removed, it's going to be very sharp, like very crisp, unless you already like feather it by adding, you know, some pixels here. But I usually like to just clean it up again. So, okay, great. So then again, using my stamp tool here, just going in. And now one thing that I want to be mindful too is that like I want to select where my origin is. And usually I do that by clicking down on option onto the area that I want to stamp from. That's because like you can tell that there's a difference in like texture and shade and everything here. So I want to make sure that I'm like, you know, staying as true to like what would be there. Okay. Perfect. It's probably not the most perfect, but we can fix that up. Some good thing is that like most of this is kind of like a little bit more blurry and like textured, so I can kind of get away with a lot.
Yes,
there's a lot of give. Awesome. Okay, and then I might need to go down on the other side as well, but this is pretty good. Okay. And then I can always do another little stamped situation here. And actually, I'm going to bring down that opacity as well, just to kind of like make things a little more seamless.
Yeah,
okay.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Maggie made the comment that learning Photoshop isn't a small amount of time, like takes a long time to learn. Do you have tips for anyone who's wanting to learn more about Photoshop or just kind of get into using it more? Maybe they've just been using Lightroom and they want to kind of break into Photoshop a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, it is a very robust, you know, program. And I will say, I totally want to validate your feelings about it being very intimidating. But the best thing that I can say is to just honestly like go in and like try every tool. And it sounds weird, but like if you just like, you know, and obviously like there's a couple of like basic tutorials when you first get into Photoshop that you can access by going into the help panel or like little drop down menu. There's Photoshop help, hands-on tutorials. Those are really great for just learning the basics of like, I mean, maybe you already know about like layers and kind of setting up your workspace, but if you don't, that's a great start. But then once you're a little bit more comfortable with doing layers and you know, selections, I feel like selections and layers are like super key. Like you're gonna need them like all the time. So knowing, you know, those like the back of your hand is going to be a great first step. But then once you're comfortable with everything else, just kind of start playing around with the different tools and seeing like what exactly they do, right? And you know, over time, just kind of like you'll start to get a good sense of like, okay, like this is what this does. And to be honest, like there's a lot of things that I still like, I forget how to do. So I honestly still to this day will have to look up some tutorials. Like we can't fit everything in our heads of like everything that Photoshop does, you know?
Yeah. And if there's something you don't use all the time, you know, that
exactly.
Sometimes you have to like remember how to do a specific thing because you just haven't done it in months.
Exactly. So, you know, don't I think it's just like something that you kind of have to like keep at it. And then eventually like, you know, you'll start to get the hang of it. You'll know like, okay, like I kind of gravitate towards these things because this is what this does, or like, you know, this helps me do this thing. And over time you'll just kind of start to like get very good at it. So but I honestly like I think we'll always be students in this program, and because of all the new tools, like it's just ever changing. And so don't feel bad about where you're at in terms of, you know, or I think we have to also remember like it's okay to like suck at something, you know, and that's just part of learning. And you know, you're teaching yourself a whole new program. Like that's really difficult, you know? So
for sure.
But yeah, just soaking up as much I think, information as possible, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, the more you
The
practice,
more you
just
practice.
like
Yeah.
just like anything, the more you practice, the better you'll be. And
Hmm.
you'll learn
Exactly.
your own way of doing things too, like the way that you like to do something, or your little tricks that you use. You know, everyone has their own way of doing things, their own process, their own workflow. So
Exactly.
it takes time to discover that.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We're getting somewhere here. Okay. Perfect. So I'm just kind of like, I feel like I'm doing muscle memory stuff now where I'm just kind of, I have, and that's the other thing too. Learning keyboard shortcuts is like great because
Yes.
then you can really like work very efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely recommend just kind of learning like, and you can even make your own like shortcuts too. Like
Yeah.
I have set up and changed some of my keyboard shortcuts because I'm like, oh, I use these fingers like all the time. So for me, it's like easy to just like click that button. I know that it's going to get to that tool or whatever, you know? So like even the way that I'm switching back from this or like, you know, this L, you know, it's like, it's kind of muscle memory over time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So then we've got these ones, which I want to clean up as well. So this is always kind of like a tricky situation because obviously when you're working, wait, there we go. When you're working with like, you know, at an angle, you're always going to get some form of, you know, I guess like lens distortion or just like the look of like glassware or anything that's like vertical looking kind of
Yeah.
like off
It looks like it's
centered.
kind of leaning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one actually is leaning though. I will say this one was
The
leaning.
shape of the glass is
The
just kind
shape
of
of the glass.
skewed. That's funny.
Yeah. But I will say that you know, and some people like that. I think some people will leave it.
Sure.
Sometimes some people won't, and that's okay. Like whatever is your preference. I mean, it's your photo and you get to decide
Yeah.
how you want to edit it. But sometimes I like to just edit it because why not, you know? So
It's good to know how to do it just in case you need to.
exactly. So I usually like to do like just a rough selection around the image. And then I will, you know, Command J to kind of place it on its own layer. And I always have my rulers on. If you don't know how to turn it on, I think it's Command R. There you go. Perfect. And then I have my rulers and I use those as a guide for my glassware here. So look at how like wonky that is. And so like obviously like some glassware does naturally widen at the, you know, top, so that's like super normal, so don't worry about that. But if you just wanted to have something to guide you, you can do that. And I usually like to just kind of press Command T for transform, and I'll choose a few different tools. So there's kind of like a lot here. There's skew, there's warp, there's distort. You can even rotate, you know, so whatever kind of like works and gets you to your destination is probably like great. But I usually like to kind of try a couple different things, right? So
Ah,
that kind of I can start with that. And actually one thing before I even start to transform, I want to make sure that I'm changing this to a smart object. So if you right click on that layer and then you click on convert to smart object, that kind of like retains the quality of it a little bit more. Because once you start warping, once you start distorting and everything, it can start to get like real weird and like kind of blurry and funky. So I try to stay away from that. So there we go. And then maybe I will do a little bit of warp, and I know that that is looking a little weird. So I'm just going to bring that down and
nice.
out. And obviously I'm affecting this. Don't worry. We'll get to that. But I kind of just start like sort of seeing where this needs to go. And I'm like pretty happy with that, I think.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. So I can press OK and I can remove these guides. I'll clear them. And now that looks so much better, right? But
Yeah,
now
it
we've
definitely
got
looks
this
straighter.
situation going on. So I like to just add a layer mask here. And now with a paintbrush with black selected, I'll remove all of that I just kind of affected here. And we can get back to some harmony in this photo. There we go. And when I start getting closer to this area, I'll just up my hardness a little bit so that I make sure that it's not like looking super fuzzy.
Nice. We have about 10 minutes left. So if you guys have any other questions about Photoshop, about post-production, photography in general, feel free to drop them in the chat. Yeah, these streams always go by so fast.
I know, I swear. We're so used to like the 2-hour streams from before that like,
yeah, like,
I'm like, what is happening?
Almost done already.
I know. So
Beautiful.
There you go. That was just like a quick little transformation there. And I definitely want to take note of like the areas where I affected. So I can just kind of go around those and do a little, soft brush there. Make sure I kind of clean that up a little bit. Just like around where I affected. There we go.
Beautiful.
Perfect. And then again, I think I'm okay with that. And I can remove, there we go. So sometimes if I'm like, I'm good with all the changes that I've made and I kind of want to continue cleaning up. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll merge the generative fill layers because I'm like, great, I'm happy with the effects that I made and I'm okay with those just merging down onto my clean area, right? Because that's what I've affected. And I'm pretty happy with this too. Let me see if there's any other areas that oh, there we go. Okay. So that's why you need to like zoom in and zoom out like constantly because sometimes, let's see, where are you? There we go. Sometimes you'll accidentally get into where you don't want to get into. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. That's better. Okay, great. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to just go ahead and merge that down. And then obviously if I want to ever go back, then I can just, go back and turn that layer off.
Non-destructive
and get what
editing.
I need, right? They're a little bit of destructive, but not enough.
A little bit,
like...
but like you can go back.
Exactly.
You can like still access what it was.
Yeah. I always love doing that though, like seeing how much it transformed.
Yes. Oh,
and it's always a great little thing. So there we go. I'm just kind of removing the lines there. Especially make sure that you get the reflection. And it usually does a pretty good job. That's like really good. There we go.
Nice.
Okay, perfect. And because this image is like, so much of it I can actually do in Lightroom too. I'm actually just gonna finish clean, like that's pretty clean right there. So I'm gonna just like save that. And actually, let me just do one last little thing right here. Let me see what happens if I try to fill that. Maybe it'll fill it in for me. And actually, I also want to see if I can remove that.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
That looks a little funky. Okay, not bad. Oh, I like that one.
I like that one.
I think that one looks the most real.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then now let's go ahead and generative fill that. See if it'll take care of that. Otherwise, I'll have to just use my old ways. Perfect. So it just gets it's like so great. I just love these tools, man. Like, that's so good.
It's really good.
I like that one.
Yeah, looks great. Good job, Generative Fill.
I know. And then if I wanted to like be like, okay, I really don't like that you did this, I can just go in again and then have Generative Fill just like fix that little section there. And I love that it gives me like different, like, ooh, there you go. Perfect. Right there.
Wade asked if it was easy to balance the lemons. So I will tell you a trick, Wade. They were not balanced. It was toothpicks. So it's all an illusion.
I know.
I wish that we had magic touch and we could just balance everything. But I mean, and sometimes things do balance surprisingly well. But I would say the majority of the time that we're balancing something, it's either like toothpicks, fishing line, earthquake putty,
yes,
tape, skewers, C-stands,
all the tools.
Yeah. Go through the list.
Amazing. Okay, so I
Yeah.
just saved it. And now when I go back into Lightroom, there's our edited image from what it was, right? Like that's pretty
So
amazing. So now, yeah,
it
go ahead.
automatically updated it in Lightroom once you
Yes,
saved it.
yes. It made a new file, but it's right next
So
to the
you can
old
access
one.
it right
But
there.
I can
Magic.
access it. Super great. And
Yes.
then now I just want to make those last few adjustments on here. So again, I'm going to use my masking tool here, and I'm going to do like a little bit of a linear gradient. And basically what I'm doing with this is that I want to kind of affect just that little area right there. So I can even like bring it up if I wanted to, or I don't know, maybe I want to like make it more moody. And I can like continue to affect, you know what I mean? Like I can totally make those adjustments and like decide how I want it to look. We like really bright stuff, so maybe I'll keep it bright. I don't know. Let's see.
I liked it bright. It looked fun.
I liked it brighter, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if I just bring this up a little bit, shadows up a little bit, and then maybe I also want to do another one. And then I just press plus here, another radial gradient. Maybe I just want to affect just like this bottom area here. And maybe I'm bringing up the shadows a little bit more. And then I want to punch up the highlights here. Or maybe I want to add some contrast. That looks pretty.
That looks beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It makes it pop, you know?
It
like
just makes it pop, you know?
I know that's the joke, but like it is true that
really does.
You do want the, you know, I mean, sometimes you want a really soft, dreamy image, but sometimes you want that like poppy, that poppy look.
Yeah, like look at, oh my gosh, that's amazing already. Let me bring out the shadow just like a little bit more. Bring down the whites just like slightly. And then we love to do like a texture.
Wade says pop pop.
Look. Like look at how that looks, just like all the texture.
So fun. Yes.
And actually one thing that I even forgot to do in Photoshop is to add a little bit of a high pass sharpening before I took it over, because that would make it even more. But let's go ahead and just, because I missed that, this is a great way to like get back into it and then do it again. So I'm going to copy those settings, right? Because sometimes what I do, if I go back into Photoshop and I make that edit, right? So sometimes
you have 3 minutes, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Wow. And what am I even typing?
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off, but I wanted to let you know.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Normally I would do some way more like, you know, dodging and burning situation and all of that. But since we only have a little bit of time, we'll just, you know, we'll keep it simple. Okay. And then let's say I did all my dodging and burning. That's great. I darkened my darks. I brightened my brights. And now I want to do my little sharpen. So I go over to filter, other, high pass, best tool ever for sharpening. I love it. I'm going to push it a little bit. Let's do 2.4. Yeah. And then I change the blending mode to linear light. That looks insane. I'll bring that down a little bit, 80%. We'll save that, press OK. And now it's just going to update it again in Lightroom. And hopefully, sometimes it doesn't always happen, but if it does, great. Sometimes it will update and the same settings that I had already applied will stay, which is great.
Yes.
But if it doesn't, that's okay. That's why we copied those developed settings so that I can paste them again.
So you can paste them in again.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. So saving 99%. That is a lie.
I know, it's like every other percent is so fast. And then the last one is like, it's like 80% in 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wants to give you hope. So it's like,
it wants to give you the
one
illusion.
more percent, but it's not.
I know. Oh, Photoshop. Give it to me. Come on. Almost there. You got to root for me, guys.
Will I make it?
There we go. Okay, great.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Okay, so now if we take a look at it, yep, it just reverted. So that's why I paste the settings again. And there we go. There's our image, like super crispy, super gorgeous. And that is our final image. 99.99999%. Yes.
Exactly.
So we went from that image to this gorgeous, stunning image.
Such subtle differences, but they really do make a big difference.
They do make a big difference. And I could have continued, right, with all the colors, the like color adjustments, like gone really fine-tuned. But that is just an easy way to kind of work with Lightroom Classic and Photoshop to get to this beautiful result.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Arabella. Thank you guys all for watching.
Thank you,
we will post this. We will post this on our feed, Weekend Creative on Instagram at some point once Arabella finishes it up. So make sure to follow us there and make sure you subscribe to Adobe Live so you can get all of the great content that is coming up soon. And we will see you guys soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.